Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Green and Golden Boys podcast. This is the podcast for Packer fans wondering, what the hell's in that tea? I am your co-host, Charles, and with me, as always, is Marcus. Marcus, how are you?
Doing well, Charles. And yourself?
I'm great. Marcus, what the hell is in Aaron Rodgers' tea these days?
Ayahuasca.
Oh, on Alaska?
Ayahuasca. Some. Do you?
I definitely do not. This is... Yeah, me neither. This is definitely, is this Hollywood? Is this, the elite? Is this, he's just, got an insight into something that we all don't understand? Or is this, I guess, what's your take on Aaron Rodgers taking some sweet psychedelics to find himself, make himself a little bit happier? Is it to each his own, or is it weird? You tell me.
I don't like to judge others for their personal journeys, as Aaron Rodgers would put it. I listened to the entire episode of the Aubrey Marcus podcast where he describes his trip to Peru and the ayahuasca journey that he and Danica went on, or he went on with Aubrey. But I want to say that the overarching message I think he put out during that conversation was, sometimes you need a push in the right direction, and it sounds like this might have been the push he needed to, I guess, forgive himself for past discretions, realize he was enough to be loved, and sort of reset his entire body and mind and spirit. So I think it's a little weird? Maybe a little bit, but who am I to judge? And we can't argue with the consecutive MVPs, but I think crediting the drug or the trip with those two performances is maybe a bit of a stretch. But
and what year? I didn't listen to the full podcast. What year was he doing that in Peru?
Do you remember in like March of 2020, right before the lockdown, when he was trying to get out of Peru, and that was when he was there?
Got it.
So we all remember the whole
barely
soap opera
escaped
of him, yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then now take me through the timeline. When was Jordan Love drafted?
I believe Jordan Love was drafted in 2020, just about a month later.
Just about a month later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this wasn't where I meant to take the podcast right away, but let's go there. I've been listening a lot to the pundits, and is Jordan Love a wasted draft pick? Because Aaron Rodgers was just on a podcast yesterday. He's doing a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows, a lot of interviews. Maybe he'll come on the Green and Golden Boys. But he did say, jokingly or seriously, we're not sure yet, that he was interested in playing 3 to 4 more years. We'll dive into that in a minute. But if that were the case, obviously we would need to get rid of and move on from Jordan Love, which if you kind of look at it quickly, you would say, all right, so that means Jordan Love was a wasted first round and I think a 4th round draft pick. But I'm hearing more and more steam from decently, John Kuhn, decently credible sources, for example, that they think, okay, well, maybe you get the back-to-back maybe you don't get the back-to-back MVP performances because, or if you don't get it, if Jordan Love isn't drafted, you don't have someone kind of nipping at his heels a little bit. Do you think, I'm going to give you either or, and then you can make up your third if you don't agree with either of these. Do you think it was the on Alaska drug? Sorry. Or do you think it was Jordan Love being drafted? Or do you think it was option C that really inspired his great performances, his MVP performances the last 2 years?
I would have said just Jordan Love a couple of weeks ago, but after listening to the conversation he had on that Aubrey Marcus podcast, I think this is his journey, the ayahuasca and the I don't want to say hallucinations, but the experience he had, I think, definitely changed him. And then I think when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, traded up to get Jordan Love, I think the just extreme competitor in him was reignited. So maybe it was a combination of the two, but I would say the Jordan Love pick probably had more to do that. But I don't really know. Does it really matter? I mean, I think this sort of speculation is a little played out at this point. I think we've done enough of that over the last 2 years, and I personally would like to talk about something different, but I'm just curious to get your take. I don't know if you listened to the conversation with Aubrey or not, but what do you think? Do you think combination of the two, Jordan Love or hallucinogens?
Or option C is he did tell us way back in, I think, 2020, 2021 that he watched an old film of himself back in 2010, and his drop is different. And oh, by the way, we have running backs now. And oh, by the way, we have a new head coach. So I don't think I can say one or the other. I think I was trying to set you up a little bit to pick one or the other. Let's just say all the above. I think you're right. It's a little played out. But it's important to kind of keep in mind, I would say, as we move forward, because there are some serious decisions that we need to make with someone like Jordan Love and some other players, and really based on his mood. And if it is more, hate to say it, drug related, maybe he'll feel happier doing something else, in the next year or the next couple years. But speaking of the drugs that he took a few years back, there was some recent news that was released on that very topic. Do you want to walk us through some of the breaking news between the drugs and the NFL, and whether or not they will suspend Aaron Rodgers for that?
Yeah, so we heard, I think it was today or yesterday, that the NFL says his use of ayahuasca does not violate their drug policy because he, quote, it wouldn't have triggered a positive test result on either the substance abuse or performance-enhancing substance policies as part of the CBA. So he should be free and clear. I don't think we have to worry about this coming back to bite him in the butt, but, in the butt.
I want to be done.
However,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, however, stranger things have happened. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of want to be done talking about it. I think it's a little bit more funny than anything, just because, I don't know. I just think it is. But how does it not? I mean, it's a psychedelic drug, right? Like, that's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, it's been several years, I think, maybe. It's been over 2 years, and I don't think retroactively it would make sense to punish somebody for admitting they did something 2.5 years ago. Right. Especially if it's like a one-time use of a drug that is, I think, legal in the country that he was in at the time. It's not like he had this stuff flown into San Diego and, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, you could smoke pot in Colorado, though, in the NFL and get tested in the NFL and, you would fail that and be suspended. So, well, sure. I mean, but to that point, like, he didn't fail a drug test. This was true over 2 years ago. So, yeah, if it were, maybe it'll get added to their list of drugs over the next CBA. But I think we're probably free and clear. But we've got some other breaking news that I thought was pretty interesting. We can talk about some releases and some signings. I wanted to talk about one in particular, but before we get to him, Packers have released long snapper Stephen Wirtle, who he signed last year. And I was doing some research today, and it turns out he had, at the end of last season, the third worst overall grade for a long snapper, according to Pro Football Focus. They still have a long snapper, an undrafted free agent from Georgia Tech named Jack Coco. So we will get a closer look at him through the next couple of weeks and see if he is going to be the long-term solution at long snapper. Obviously, that was a position of concern last year. Just never clicked, and caused some issues with some holds, and probably led to some missed kicks and fumbles and things like that. But how is it still an issue in August? Right? Like, I mean, we knew it was an issue all last season. We knew it cost us the game potentially. I mean, it basically cost us the game against San Francisco. How doesn't Bisaccia, how doesn't LaFleur, how doesn't somebody know somebody to say, hey, dust off the pads, come on out, you're going to be our long snapper in Green Bay for a year? Like, how is this still a conversation?
I don't know. It's not a position I'm overly familiar with. I think every team needs a long snapper. It's not a unique position in that respect, and I feel like it's kind of one of those positions that not a lot of guys pursue. You just kind of fall into the role, it seems like. We're talking about, I think Stephen Wirtle and Jack Coco both played other positions in college, and they're just like, if I want to continue my football career, I should try this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a skill that I think a lot of guys develop when they're,
but if you talk,
or when they're younger.
If you talk to or listen to special teams, professionals, it's not just, hey, can I get the ball from point A to point B? It's obviously getting it there quickly. And then what I learned because I saw the same headline about them releasing it, and when I read in an article was that, the whole laces out thing for a holder, hey, laces out, the kicker, if the laces are in, it's bad. It might turn the ball one way or the other. The kicker doesn't want to see the laces. A lot of that has to do with the snapper more than the holder. And it's it's not so much get it back there, but get it back in the correct number of rotations, and that these guys are that good where they can get it a quarter of a turn one way or the other. And that's kind of the skill. So I read that was part of the issue last year. It's it was getting back there oftentimes right on target, but the laces were 180 degrees the wrong way where they need to be, putting more pressure on the holder to flip that around, kind of ruining the timing of Mason Crosby. So I think it is, to your point, something to kind of fall into, but obviously a very unique skill set that not just anyone could do.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know. I would guess it's a position that kind of just falls by the wayside in terms of scouting and drafting resources. I think it's a position where a lot of teams probably just we'll take what we can get there, and like the Packers found out the last year and the year before, it is sometimes a very important position of need. And
do you think that? Do you really think that though? I think you don't go draft him number one, but a multi-million-dollar roster, billion-dollar industry, right? The Broncos, by the way, just sold for $4 billion yesterday. The special teams unit, those three guys are a very big part of winning and losing. And if it does actually fall by the wayside and oh, I hope this works out, that seems like a huge flaw and a very huge not monopoly, but a very huge machine called the NFL, called the Green Bay Packers. You would think there'd be put, especially after the season we had last year, a lot of focus and a lot of effort in finding the guy to bring in. If I were Gutekunst and I just saw what we did last year, I'd be all right, who's the best freaking long snapper in the NFL, and what can we do to go get him? You know what I mean? And obviously that would be tough to do to get the best, but I have a hard time believing it's oh, well, hopefully it works out next year. I mean, that cost you the season, cost you a playoff game.
Yeah, it wasn't just the long snapping that was the problem. And arguably, when you look at how you put together a special teams unit, a lot of those guys are, some of them play skill positions, some of them play, offensive, defensive line. I just still think the only place that a long snapper is going to play is that long snapper. You're not, you know what I mean? Yep. You're not going to be gunning on kickoffs, okay? You're not going to be blocking on a punt return.
Yep. It's their. It's like a kicker. It's your position.
Yeah, and it's the least important of those three, of a kicker and a punter and a long snapper. Obviously, a long snapper is the least important.
Yep.
And there's no versatility with that player. So you're not. I just feel like as a microcosm of how the resources on a team are spent.